I think to date, it's about 140 different products that have been certified.
No matter what kind of phone you might have, it is working the same way anywhere in the world.
Here's some opportunities that we think should be standardized globally.
That is living within the CCC standard in the phone's wallet.
We are now joined in our little mobile pod studio by Alysia Johnson and Ian Televik. So would you please introduce yourselves and what you do? Because you're doing some really interesting technology, working with interesting
Absolutely, Jacqui. First of all, thanks so much for having us. It's really great to be here today. I'm Alysia Johnson. I'm the president of the Car Connectivity Consortium, which we also call CCC. I've been with the CCC for just over 4 years now. Have been a long time in the technology standards development world. And the CCC, Car Connectivity Consortium, is a standards development body as well as a certification development body. We have over 300 companies in the automaker space, companies like BMW, General Motors, Hyundai, really the vast majority of auto manufacturers, as well as device companies, but device manufacturers, Apple, Google, Samsung, Xiaomi, collaborating together with tier ones, fleet management companies, semiconductor companies, really to forge ahead on all things car connectivity to be standardized. Our most recent standards work has been in the digital key space, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But in a nutshell, that's CCC. I'll hand it over to Ian.
Yes, and I'm Ian Televik. I'm the senior marketing director at CCC, and I've been with the organization for a couple of years now. And my background's in automotive, so 15 plus years at major automotive OEMs, and then different electric vehicle startups around the world, and landed at CCC and really appreciated the need for global technology standards, especially when we're talking about connected cars and kind of the new frontiers of this space. And really the only way to see it scale properly is when the car companies, the device manufacturers like Apple, Google, Samsung, tier ones, semiconductor companies, and everyone in between is all working to the same standard, so that no matter who you are, no matter what device you have in your pocket, no matter what brand of car you have around the world, it works. And so it's been a really fun time so far, working on helping to drive collaboration with our member companies around the world to develop these tech standards.
So you mentioned, we've heard a lot at the event around sort of the partnerships that are required in technology. Most automakers make great vehicles, but they don't necessarily make great software. And that's something that they require third-party tech providers to build in. But you're absolutely right. Every single tech entrepreneur will have maybe a different way of doing it. And so actually standardization, I suppose, is more critical than ever. So when you talk about standardization, are we thinking Apple CarPlay, that kind of thing? So when you plug it in, it recognizes that's your device and off it goes. Or is there other kind of areas that you're thinking? You mentioned, Alysia, around keys and having your phone as your key. Just expand, if you will, a little bit about where you're looking to standardize and how automakers, governments, software providers can understand where they need to design to and what standards they have to try and meet.
We're seeing more than ever in the vehicle connectivity space that no one company can do it alone, right? It absolutely takes partnership. So, whether it's a long-time vehicle manufacturer that's getting more software defined and partners that way. But the CCC really stands at the center of the ecosystem, bringing parties together in a space that, any vehicle speaking to any device. So you mentioned CarPlay, that's an example. But when we think about digital key, many vehicle companies have done proprietary versions of a digital key. CCC is really the global standard, so that no matter what kind of car you're driving, no matter what kind of phone you might have, it is working the same way anywhere in the world. So when you then extrapolate that to, a family that has 3 vehicles and they're all different brands, and mom and dad both have Android phones and kids have maybe Apple phones, it all works ubiquitously together. Then you can take that to, a rental car situation. We're going to talk a little bit about fleets in just a moment. or Jacqui's going to be in town and I want to lend her my car. I just shoot you a little text, and it literally moves that way and sits in your phone's wallet. So phone as a key really is a great example of this vehicle connectivity all around the world that we're seeing a great deployment of.
I think probably car sharing is one of those, it absolutely makes sense, doesn't it? And that's the only way that you can use a car share. You've either got to get something that unlocks the vehicle with your phone, or your phone has to be the key to be able to drive it. So just talking a little bit about sort of where you've both kind of come from. You mentioned you come from like automotive. Alysia, you've come from the tech background, and you mentioned the Bay Area. So Silicon Valley was kind of where you're from.
Yeah.
What was the experience that you kind of had before you came into this space, and what enticed you into automotive?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got, it's a great topic at cocktail parties. I have this very niche little background in technology standards. So I've been working for more than 20 years now, where technology companies are really wanting to collaborate together. And we see that really at the roots of technology. You mentioned Silicon Valley, where I live. Lots of those companies have recognized early on that going their own way maybe creates some proprietary standing out in the industry, but really joining forces and moving that together really moves more powerfully to increase adoption and really to create a consumer trust because there's a standardized way of doing things. So I've done that in many different trade associations where engineers from various companies will come together to really develop best of breed. When I had the opportunity to think about how that same projection will work best for the automotive industry and still, lots of technology companies as well. CCC is just a really on the forefront of bringing that whole ecosystem together. It's really lovely to see new parts of the industry coming together, and we're definitely seeing that now in some of our growth areas: fleet management, two-wheeler, light mobility. So we, as I said before, have the vast majority of auto manufacturers in the world, and now we're seeing even new parts of that ecosystem come together.
Yeah. Ian, just coming to you now. Obviously, you've come from automotive. I've been automotive most of my career, and I think what we see is the consumers have experiences out of automotive, but we're in the industry quite slow to adoption of that disruption.
Yeah.
But disruption really does drive change. What's your kind of experience of coming from within the industry and now very much working in the tech space?
No, it's so true. From the OEM perspective, it's all about the consumer experience, right? And when you talk about technology, consumers now expect technology to work and not have to think about it and not have to put too much effort into ensuring that it works. And so from an OEM perspective, in order to ensure, let's talk about vehicle access and having a digital key experience. It's one thing to have an owner's app, but if you're in an area with low cell connectivity, for example, and you were trying to remote unlock your car, you may have some difficulties with that. And then when the OEM is developing that owner's app, let's say, and they want to make sure that it works on iOS and Android devices, they need to speak to all the different stakeholders and have those individual discussions and collaborations. So in the standards world, we actually facilitate those discussions and collaborations, both in an online and offline capacity throughout the year. And it's not just with one OEM and one device manufacturer, it's with all the OEMs, all the device manufacturers, all the tier one suppliers, and everyone in between. And they're collaborating on a regular basis to create effectively our product is a specification. And that technology specification then can go and be implemented from the OEMs, from the device manufacturers, and everyone in between. And what that allows is now the technology is going to work. And it's as a CCC and as the standards body, we also certify those implementations on vehicles, on devices, and so on. And so it's now ensured that it's interoperable, no matter the device, no matter the vehicle. It also ensures the security protocol. Alysia mentioned earlier that one of the differentiators for this tech standard for CCC digital key is that it's not necessarily an app-based implementation. It actually lives on your phone's wallet. And so all of the same security measures and cryptographic standards that that consumers expect when they're using their credit cards and tap to pay.
Face ID or whatever.
Exactly.
Right.
The same standards of security are implemented for your digital car key. So you have that kind of peace of mind. And also from a UX perspective, it just works. And so it allows passive lock and unlock as you're approaching or leaving the vehicle. Also, in the case, let's say your phone's out of battery, part of the spec is using NFC technology so that you can actually tap your phone to the car handle to unlock it, tap it to the ignition to start it. And so because all of these players are working together and collaborating on this, they're thinking through that user experience, that consumer experience, and making sure that the specification that we as an organization publish has really incorporated and thought about all of that so that it's a thoroughly, fully baked solution. And so from that OEM perspective, it's really all about that consumer experience, but without sacrificing the security and data privacy protection. It's really important to the organization.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, what if someone takes your phone? What if you because that has happened. My son got mugged actually in London recently, a couple of years ago. And there's the old, like you say, what if it runs out of battery? Tell me what NFC means, because I probably do know, but I don't know.
NFC is near field communication.
Got you.
So it's a very secure, a maximum capacity of transmission of 3 centimeters. So it is actually the what is in the chip in your phone to allow for a credit card transaction, contactless payment.
Yeah.
That is you're using NFC when you're using that.
Because I have keyless in my car, so it knows when I'm there. I just touch it and it sort of does it rather than actually pressing the keys. That's the same. I think technology world and automotive world, we are just absolutely brilliant at using 3-letter acronyms. There are millions of them.
Sure.
So the work that obviously you talk about sort of now using that kind of the key for the vehicle. What other areas? And I'm assuming you talk about standardization, like the use of APIs. How do you connect all these things up? What are the other big sort of projects? I know you were talking here yesterday.
Yes.
What were you talking about at the show yesterday?
Yeah, thank you. I was moderating a panel on software-defined fleets, and we were talking about the physical assets of fleets and transforming that into software innovation. There are so many opportunities. When you think about just the simple use case of a passenger vehicle in a home, and I say simple, but there's a huge amount of complexity to that. Then when you amplify that to a fleet company that's buying thousands and thousands of vehicles every year, they don't want to deal with a room full of fobs. And who goes where and where are they going to get lost? And you can just see how the management of that is quite complex.
And to add to that, it's not only thousands of vehicles, but it's multiple brands of vehicles in many cases.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
right.
Of course.
Exactly.
You've got all one fleet of one vehicle, make, model, variant.
Right.
You've got
all over the world.
Yeah.
Right. So every little, airport stand, whatever, that you can, rent a car. So having a software defined approach to that, where you can have a server-based, a computer system that's managing a digital key, system. And that it goes beyond even just vehicle access and vehicle start, where we can really help them define the customer journey from the start to the end. When they are in their airport or even in the airplane, checking in, like we do sometimes with hotels now, getting their key, they know where they're going, off they go. It's that simple.
You can literally geolocate. That makes so much sense, doesn't it? Right. I'm getting off the plane. Like normally you get if you're not using a rented vehicle, you you can get your Uber, you can see where it is.
Right.
Now you can kind of check into your vehicle.
Yep.
You can unlock the key with your phone. There's so many different.
Absolutely.
Wow, what an exciting space to work in. And with the panel then, where are we at the moment on that journey in terms of delivery, or how mature or ready for all of this is A, the vehicle manufacturer in the market, and B, the consumer? Are we seeing pilots of this rolling out?
One of the things that Ian mentioned is that fleet operators are purchasing many different vehicles, many different brands of vehicles at once. So part of this is a timing issue, right? We need to see deployment from multiple vehicle brands in order to really have the fleet operators with the confidence that they can move this into large scale. So we're in a scalability journey right now, I would say, where we have millions of vehicles already deployed, and we are seeing that with many of our CCC members that are excited to be on this journey. And we are also seeing vehicle manufacturers still becoming certified. It's been a very, very busy year for CCC as these companies adopt and then move their products into the market. So that's true for fleet as well.
Yeah.
And from the CCC perspective, our most recent version of the specification for CCC Digital Key was published just about a year ago, version 4, and it includes protocols for not only having the owner device being your actual smartphone in your pocket, but also a server-based owner device. So that helps us support those use cases for fleets where the central office is the owner of that digital key, and they can digitally provision the keys out to the different drivers, whether they're last mile delivery drivers for their fleet of vans or car rental customers. And we just recently launched a new work group within CCC that's focused specifically on fleet management use cases. And so the way that our organization works as a member-driven organization is really our strategic roadmap on the types of standards that we want to develop for the industry are driven by the member companies themselves, their use cases, what's important to them, and their collaboration efforts to say, yes, this is important. This has a true market opportunity and a consumer opportunity. Let's go drive that standard. So one of these working groups now is strictly focused on fleets. And so it's car rental use cases from car rental operators and the OEMs themselves. It's also last mile delivery, municipalities, long haul trucking, and autonomous rideshare type use cases. So it's a really nice time in that fleet space to bring different stakeholders from around the world to say, hey, here's some opportunities that we think should be standardized globally.
That's fantastic. And where can people kind of follow what you're doing, get involved? Because I think it's really important. I think not only to understand, this is totally new to me. I didn't know that you existed until we were looking at the speakers for the show. And I was like very curious about kind of what you're working on, but also I think we all know, like, the kind of main example of digital key would be Tesla. That's kind of, it soon very quickly becomes the new normal. If you have a digital key in your phone and everyone does that. But I think kind of what's coming next and how can we help people to kind of get involved with what you're doing or follow you and become, informed about the pilots? I'm assuming you're operating now. This is a global consortium.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're working, as I said, with the vast majority of vehicle manufacturers in the world. And we're seeing deployment readily. So it will be challenging within the next couple of years to purchase a new vehicle and not see our standard already embedded into vehicles. So, when people are out there, making a decision about their purchase, having this phone as a key, having the key sit in the wallet, that's the CCC standard out there. Of course, we have, a website. We're out there with quite a bit of awareness and education at various things that Ian sets us up with. And with 300 member companies strong, we're fairly ubiquitous in the device manufacturer world as well. So some of the other areas that we're moving into, we've had such great response from auto manufacturers. That lots of micromobility, two-wheeler, three-wheeler kinds of companies have come to us to say, hey, we don't have the same door opening challenge or use case, but we'd like to have secure, privacy protected opportunities for our scooters, for our motorcycles, for our golf carts, for our tractors. So we have another new task group called the LMTG, the Light Mobility or Light Motor and Mobility Task Group. And they're launching a number of use cases that are similar in the access and passive start, not necessarily passive entry arena. But again, just thinking about how consumers can, Ian said before, it just works, right? There's a huge amount of complexity behind it just works. And part of it just works is I trust it. I trust that this is going to be there for me. I trust that I'm going to be able to get into my car. I trust that nobody else is going to be able to get into my car. So the behind the scenes complexity with so many different parts of the ecosystem sitting at the table together really allows for us to make a global change in this in the way that people access and drive their vehicles.
Kind of the it just works thing. It's funny when it just doesn't work. We did some user testing. I mean, this is going back a few years now, just to see how people would behave on sites or how their search behavior was evolving. And they were like clicking on something going, well, why doesn't it just, it should this, because they want to click on the image or do that. And it just, why doesn't it work?
Yes.
So there's equal frustration when things don't work. So I think you get we've kind of given consumers so much now to kind of go back to today's when things were a bit more analog is a bit foreign for us. Right. So just thinking about like what's coming up for you, what are you excited about now in the next sort of 12 to 18 months?
There's lots going on. So first of all, Alysia mentioned our website. So carconnectivity.org, best place to check out the work that we're doing and the list of all of our member companies and the vehicles and the devices and the modules and all other implementations that have been certified by CCC. You can find on that website too. We have, I think to date, it's about 140 different products that have been certified. And not counting all of those that have been implemented and going through the certification process. For me, what's really exciting is as we're expanding and evolving the CCC digital key spec into more use cases in the passenger car space. But for me, really, it's what we've been talking about, moving into the fleet space, because I think that's such a segment of the industry that is just ripe for innovation, and especially when we're talking about connected vehicles. And there's so many opportunities and use cases globally that there's just an excitement around it, bringing in these ideas and looking to find ways to standardize it. So that for me is really an exciting effort that we have going on in the next 12 plus months. And it's a constant evolution, right? It takes a little bit of time to get everyone on the same page and actually develop those standards. But once they're standardized and published and implemented, then the development time for the different companies and stakeholders for their products moves much quicker. And again, it'll work, and it'll work no matter where you are in the world and no matter what device you're using in this case.
We're seeing, different OEMs we've seen a lot of the new entrants coming into the UK have been massively sort of software defined. So how does that, and also, when we speak to people like BYD or Geely, they have in China their own tech stack. It's all within one ecosystem. So you can do it like We Pay, is that you have these apps where you do everything in one app. Yeah. I think globally we have lots of different apps and then one payment provider. We kind of connect things up slightly differently. So they're adapting, I think, to other markets depending on how they kind of do things. Mm-hmm. How does that kind of work with what you're doing in terms of standardization? Is that a challenge? Do you have to kind of meet them in the middle somewhere? It's
a great observation. And, you mentioned payments and how payments are sort of collected in the phone's wallet often with the tap to pay use case that we've seen now globally really take off. We work very, very closely with our members from all over the world. 23% of CCC's members are based in China. So that's you mentioned BYD, Geely, two companies that we work with very, very closely, as well as the device manufacturers in China. And so we're all working towards this phone as a key scenario where certainly if you are owning a vehicle, you probably want that vehicle's app in your phone to do many things that it can do. But your phone access, your vehicle access and your vehicle start, your passive entry, your passive start, that is living within the CCC standard in the phone's wallet. So suddenly now, whether it's a car that you're going to rent for 2 days, or whether it's a van that you're driving because you work for a municipality and you're having to run an errand, or your own personal vehicle, it's all being shaped in that phone's wallet is where that's living. So it is a coming together and kind of breaking down the silos of various apps and how do I do this? And we're seeing just huge momentum on this from really globally from all manufacturers and the ones that you specifically mentioned in China. It's really great to see everybody coming together because when I'm very frequently in China and working with device manufacturers there, they are all very, very interested in their export market and how that can, bring together consumer trust in a way that, whether that vehicle is manufactured in China, in Germany, in Detroit, it all works the same way.
Yeah.
That's how we can have that consistency, that standard for all consumers.
Honestly, it's so exciting. And I think the scope of what you're doing is incredible. And so whenever I get into something and think about it, it just works, I'll think of you.
Great.
And
we like that.
Thank you very much. So I do, honestly, everything we do now, whether it's a check-in for a flight, you just kind of add it to your wallet. And it's so
It
easy.
just works.
Just works. You think, my rail tickets, my everything goes in my wallet. And then it disappears when it's expired. So it's...
And you mentioned, Jacqui, we all, I think, can think back to a time where, technology has evolved, right? And there were times where it didn't just work. There was, some painful evolutions in there. Technology and the evolution of that is at a point now where, whether you're a car manufacturer, a fleet operator, a device manufacturer, sitting around the table and knowing the capability, knowing that this can work together, is so exciting. And we're really at the apex of, really just starting on this journey of what we can do with the automotive industry.
And being software defined vehicles and the proliferation of that tech stack, the momentum and the volume of contributions from our member companies and ideas of what can be standardized. I feel like it's just exponentially growing because there's so much more opportunity in having that SDV approach.
I think largely we developed the podcast to try and educate a largely kind of retailer and OEM audience who are not tech native into all of the technology, so they feel informed about what is coming. And if you're working in a vehicle retailer and you want to explain to a consumer about a software defined vehicle, I still think there's such a massive knowledge gap, and the technology is so rapidly advancing, but it is such an exciting space to be involved in. And being able to explain it to your consumers when they're making a choice about a vehicle is fantastic. And I think, Alysia, you mentioned like rental. Probably consumers' first experience of this may well be a rental when they're on holiday. They get sent a key and they kind of go, wow, that's cool. Because you don't realize it's even possible to be able to do that. So I'm really excited, and thank you for...
Absolutely. And I'll just add to that, nothing's in a silo, right? And so somebody might be going to, to look at a retailer for a car. The relationship between the technology companies, the car companies, it's all such a partnership now. That collaboration is key. Yeah. And that's what we try to do at CCC. We try to be the ecosystem where there's a coming together, an umbrella that we can help that innovation develop.
I think that's your fourth C is collaboration.
Absolutely.
That's another one. I honestly do. I think that's the one thing that if we could thread this through the whole event, it's been all about international collaboration and partnerships to be able to make these innovations kind of come to life and live and breathe as they need to in vehicles for consumers. So honestly, thank you so much for joining me, and enjoy the rest of your time in the UK. And I'm very sure our paths will cross again. I hope they do.
Thank you, Jacqui, so much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much.